Thank you. That's better. Welcome to the program agenda. I'm your host, Cito Beltran, welcoming you on this 17th day of May 2022. It's a Tuesday, and today we have two guests who are going to give us a lot of inputs. One is a regular guest, and none other than Presidential Advisor on Entrepreneurship, Joey Concepcion, who is more active than ever. If he was very involved in his campaign regarding vaccination and health protocols, I think he nearly blew a fuse the other day when it was announced that there would be increases in minimum wage. Now, Joey has been pushing for exemptions on micro enterprises. We will speak to Mr. Concepcion later. After that, we will also speak to Simon Ventura, or my neighbor Jun Ventura. And you may not be familiar with the name, but I'm sure if you've ever flown on a Philippine Airlines, or if you have visited a house with and used the bathroom and you saw the Mabuhay magazine, Jun Ventura is the guy who's been publishing that for many years. And from there, he has moved on to publishing other travel books. His love is travel. He's promoted travel, and we will speak to him because he came out with new products regarding travel, and we will see all of that later. But for now, let's go to the day's daily starter, and it comes from a speech given by the Chancellor, German Chancellor Olaf Scholz, as he was addressing the aggression of Russia in Ukraine. Fear must not paralyze us. So many German citizens were very concerned when the German government decided that they were going to help Ukraine, they were going to get involved, and people went in a panic because, oh, we don't want to get Germany dragged into another war. It's been a nightmare for us historically, but Olaf Scholz said, fear must not paralyze us. Now, you don't have to talk about war to consider that. It could be investment. It could be taking on a new job. It could be anything. Even many of you are afraid of seeing the doctor. Okay? So you are paralyzed at home. I know enough people who are now with St. Peter and St. Paul. Hindi po yung funeral. Lumampas na sila sa funeraria because they were afraid. The fear paralyzed them. So please take that into consideration. Fear must not paralyze us regardless of what the activity is involved. Okay. Meanwhile, let's look at the front page of the Philippine Star. And very interesting developments. Okay, on the front page, President Duterte grants a 3-year fixed term for military chiefs. No more revolving door policy, no more short-term generals, no more promotion, so that when they leave the service, they will get higher retirement funds pay, even if they only stayed in the position for a few months. So yan po, President Duterte signed into law an act that would fix the terms of generals, etc., chief of staff only to 3 years. Okay. The top of the front page, no wage hike, blanket exemption for micro enterprises. Okay. A representative of the National Wage Board, or we'll go to that later, has said hindi raw pwede yung blanket exemptions. Okay, now in that big photo of men and women in blue, that's a photo of the new recruits of the Philippine Coast Guard in front of the BRP Gabriela Silang. They will be deployed to different regional commands for training. Meanwhile, the photo in the middle is a photo of our three athletes who competed in the Southeast Asian Games, 31st Southeast Asian Games, and reaped gold. First is Clinton Kingsley Bautista of the Philippines, who ruled the 10 meter hurdle. And then you have Merwin Tan, who won a gold in the men's single bowling competition, ending an 11-year drought. 11 years po tayong hindi nakakakuha ng gold medal in bowling. And Carlos Yulo, who won another gold in another gymnastic competition. Meanwhile, digital payments now a must in government. Yay! Okay. The president also signed another executive order that requires many, if not all, okay, national and local government offices to include digital payments in their scheme, payout and receipt of payment for services. So pag-uusapan po natin yan in the coming days. Experts see no local transmission of Omicron subvariant. Thank you, Lord. Winning senators to be proclaimed tomorrow. Thank God, tapos na tomorrow. And then that photo is a photo of ladies, employees of the Manila City Hall posing with their recycled election paraphernalias that were made into eco bags. And last but not the least, the United States and ASEAN commit to non-militarization in the disputed South China Sea. Okay, that's all we have for the news. Let's now go to our regular, a friend of the program and an advocate in many aspects. And now he is fighting the war against this wage hike. Let's bring in Presidential Advisor for Entrepreneurship, Joey Concepcion. Senor, good morning to you.
Good morning, Cito.
Okay, I hope you haven't blown a fuse or don't have to take BP medicine when this, apparently you're very upset about this wage increase announcement.
Well, actually, my role is to really help our MSMEs. And as we know, the pandemic has really caused a lot of pain for especially the smaller ones. No? I mean, everybody got in the private sector got hit with this pandemic, and now you have the Ukraine-Russian conflict. So the micro entrepreneurs should be given that break. No? Many of them have restructured a couple of times because we have been open, close for the last 2 years. No? And although it's an automatic exemption for those under the BAMBI, which is the barangay micro businesses that are registered with DTI. There are about 6,000 of them. But we have millions of micro entrepreneurs around there. Some of them are really underground. So whether they pay the right wages, they are underground. So I mean, these are people who are quite mobile in their businesses. So I mean, I think what we're under the new president Marcos, I think what we want to try to do is make this country more inclusive. No? And those who are heavily handicapped, like micro entrepreneurs, should be given a break, especially during this period of time.
Okay, now you mentioned the BBME, barangay-based micro entrepreneurs. I don't know if it's coincidental, but the 6,000 of them are all exempted, but the rest are not. Now, according to the National Wage Productivity Board, there's still 10 days for them to decide whether they're going to shoot it down or not. Now, has the, like Go Negosyo, for instance, or groups of micro entrepreneurs been invited to express why they are opposed or what position papers, etc.?
I don't know if Jun Luis Ortiz is the head of the ECOP, so I think he's also supporting this move to exempt the micro entrepreneurs. Automatically, these 6,000 people who are registered with DTI are exempted. But as we know, these are very small people. I mean, they don't have time to do all of these filings. And I mean, I would, how before they get to the whole process, it will take time, no? So we're not talking here of small and medium enterprises. We're talking here of, these really sari-sari stores, no? And even more smaller than sari-sari stores. No? So they must make it easier. The barangays must make it easier for them to file for exemption.
Okay, does this, forgive my ignorance, Joey, but does this include even domestic helpers or household helpers? Because I know that I think it also includes farm helpers or mga, caretakers.
Well, domestic helpers or kasambahays, I think that's, different. These are people who run their own stores. Some of them employ 5, 10, so the exemption is anyone below 10, but they have to just file, no? Except for those in Bambi who applied, who are already part of DTI, automatic exemption. So I think we're trying to get more and more of them to, be on the radar and be registered under the Bambi, which is under DTI. But and that's only 6,000. To me, there's millions of them out there, no? So the greater majority of these micro entrepreneurs are still under the radar.
Okay, now I did some arithmetic. Hindi ko na kaya yung math, pare ko eh. But for Manila, in 26 days, I would have to pay 858 more to a salaried employee, or for the Visayas, it would be 1,430 pesos more per month per employee. Now, can the sector handle that if there is no exemption given, and what will be the outcome?
Well, of course, many of those who have restructured their loans, and many have done that because of the pandemic, no? I mean, are going to face a more challenging situation. No? So I think the objective really here is job generation. And while it is also important that wages may have to be adjusted because of the very high inflation caused by the Ukraine-Russian crisis. I mean, if this crisis is all over, that those commodity prices are going to crash. But unfortunately, the war is still ongoing. And if this becomes a protracted war, then the risk towards stagflation increases. No? So my point really here, Cito, is what is the priority? Job generation, because many people still have no jobs out there. Businesses are coming back. Hiring is ongoing. In fact, at our level, large corporations, there's a lot of piracy going on. People are, hiring, paying higher wages. But as you go down that line where the unskilled is, then of course, there are more people that can, law of supply and demand. There's more supply than demand. So what I'm trying to say is economic activity, which is starting to happen, and we can see that from the Philippine growth. No? The growth of the Philippines in the last quarter was about 8%. 8.1 something, no? 8.1, which is excellent. No? But who is the one pushing that growth? It is the negociantes and, of course, the labor force, because we are the ones who pay the government, the taxes, and whatever is our obligation. And that generates revenue for the Philippine government. And that's why you see the growth of the entire country moving up, which is a good sign. In other words, business is back. People are hiring again. Now, there's no doubt that wages have to be increased, but to those who can afford to increase it. So we have collective bargaining agreements. Of course, there will be wage distortions that will have to be adjusted because as they mandate the wage increases. We're prepared for that. But then again, we're also facing huge commodity price increases now, which we can not pass fully because the consumers cannot afford, and we're scared of a collapse in demand. Once the people start to hold back spending, then that's when stagflation happens. No?
Okay, but at some point, something has to be done. What solutions do you have, or does the sector have, to address this problem? Because on one hand, you have employees whose salaries can no longer meet the push of inflation. And then you have businesses who want business, of course, to carry on. And people have said in the commentaries that business will have to simply share what profits there. Has it really been that profitable for micro entrepreneurs, or are they just, hand to mouth surviving day to day?
Our micro entrepreneurs are basically what I define as survival entrepreneurs. Many of them, don't finish school. Some of them, it's only now that we are bringing a lot of mentors to help mentor them with our partners in DTI and Department of Agriculture. So they are what I call, survival entrepreneurs. They are forced into a negosyo because some of them can't get employed. No? So that's how it is. And that's about 90+% of the whole business community if you were to include micro and small. No? So I think what's important is to keep these people afloat. And yes, I believe that wages will have to be increased. They are also being increased with those companies who have collective bargaining agreements. And although, of course, between laborers and us hiring people, and of course, the employers and the employees, there is always that negotiation of what is the right wage. No? And it's very difficult for me to answer that because it depends on the area, depends on the type of business that the person is. So, and that's why we have these negotiations between our employees. So I think going forward,
for corporations, that's the case, Joey. But for the larger group of the sector, some have said perhaps there should be a tax exemption for micro entrepreneurs or micro businesses. Perhaps there should be a VAT relief on this VAT thingamajiggy. And others have said, well, Cito, it's a sink or swim reality. Because if someone can't afford to pay wages, they should not be in the business, being in business. What's your reaction to that?
Well, I'd rather have a micro entrepreneur surviving because at least he's employing himself. And you can see the landscape, no? Our sari-sari stores are millions. No? They are very important to consumer companies like us, no? Because they bring down our products to the smallest families, no, in the different barangay communities. And they also, they don't sell on cash. They have the notebook, which people make lista, and they also give credit to their customers, which is the neighboring community, who they know who to lend to. So that system has been there for generations. No? Now, if your product is not in the sari-sari store, you are not either the number one or number two. So sari-sari stores will not carry all products. They'll carry the products that are the brands that are very strong because that their puhunan is limited. Many of them are also in the underground economy. You can say our underground economy is quite huge in this country. So, people will just go underground and we want them to be more visible. No? So that's why we have to help them in a time like this. Is an exceptional time because you've got this pandemic and you've got now the Ukraine-Russia crisis, which could be as equally as challenging as the pandemic.
Okay, listening to everything you've said, it seems that the only way out of this situation is for all of those micro entrepreneurs or businesses to enlist themselves under the BBME or the Barangay-Based Micro Entrepreneurship Program. Now, would you support a mandatory enlistment? Kasi that's the key here. If you're listed under BBME, you get the exemption plus maybe there should be a colatilla that this sort of businesses that only hire X number or only make so many thousand a year should not have to pay taxes, etc. I'm just trying to work with you here, trying to figure out what's the possible solution.
Well, ideally, if all of them can enlist under the Bambi, it will make it much better because even in the mentorship program, they will be more visible so we can extend our mentorship program and all the other programs that go negosyo, and my office has been trying to do. And to a large extent, no, we're able to help a lot of people, and especially with the structure of DTI and DA there, it enables us to reach the ground. But of course, these people are running the store. Sometimes, they don't have the manpower. They don't even have maybe the knowledge and the ability to be able to go through it. So I guess there has to be a very clear campaign, and I think there has been in the past. That's why the number is at 6,000. I think we can push that further. But for the time being, what I'm just saying is that let us not put too much stress on this sector. I'm not asking this for everyone. We're just looking at the micro entrepreneurs. The big boys and the medium-sized entrepreneurs can take care of themselves. Of course, many of them are also challenged with these lockdowns. No? Don't get me wrong. No? The wage increases will also put pressure because of commodity prices, already very high wages. But of course, wages will have to be adjusted. I'm not challenging that. I think it is important that the purchasing power of our people also be protected. But let's keep in mind, no? Once the Ukraine-Russia crisis ends, all of these commodities will crash, including oil and gasoline and diesel. So now you can't get back what you gave. No, you know what I mean. So it will be there already. These wage increases, but to the benefit, commodities will go down. So I don't see this lasting forever. But it's the protracted conflict is really hurting right now many of the businesses because we just can't pass these cost increases. So you'll see in those listed companies who are in basically hit with the commodities, their profits for this year are going to plummet, and some of them will even lose money.
Well, I see an opportunity here for government to really push for mandatory enlistment of micro businesses. Now, what about negotiated value? Meaning, if the regional tripartite wage boards have said 33, would your group or ECOP and industries settle for maybe 15 peso or 20 peso? Although I know the labor unions are crying bloody murder.
Well, maybe I leave that up to ECOP and Jun Luis. He has a lot more experience in that area. My own views is just let us, for now, exempt the micro entrepreneurs and let's get them registered. So let's try to reach them, maybe through the barangay captains and LGU people can help in encouraging the sari-sari stores and all other vendors and retail to really make themselves known. No? But and hopefully that will become successful. But all of these things take time. So the problem is really now. So are they going to be penalized if they are not able to increase the wages? But quite frankly, I don't think they can police all of these millions of micro entrepreneurs. Many of them, some of them don't even last more than 6 months, no? And then they sprout again. So this is how fragile this sector is, no? Our micro entrepreneurs.
Okay. Now, just before we let you go, you made an announcement recently on another topic regarding booster shots. Just a quick response from you. What are you now proposing regarding the second booster for COVID-19 vaccinations?
Well, we had our first meeting within the private sector, a few business organizations, and a number of medical advisors who are quite involved in this pandemic. And very clearly that we have close to 90 million vaccines in the country today. And as all medicines, they don't last forever. Eventually, they will expire. And that's a fact for any medicine we buy. Now, the government has purchased these vaccines, these boosters for our people. And while the country is safe at this point in time, we can see even New York now returning back the mask mandate. So there are surges happening. These new variants are not an immediate threat to the Philippines. They are highly transmissible from that meeting yesterday, but they are mild. It's still mild. But for those who are unlucky, unvaccinated, have a higher risk of getting hospitalized. So what we're telling HTAC right now, the proposal, HTAC has not approved the second booster shot. No? The first booster, walang problema, that has been approved. No? Now, what we're saying is that, or what I'm saying and proposing, and I proposed this to the medical doctors with us yesterday, why don't we simply follow what CDC is doing in the States? No? And they're a reputable organization. And for the second booster shot, they allow it for 50 years and above. No? And those below that age, they have to be immunocompromised. But here, at this point in time, it is only the immunocompromised that will be allowed to take the second booster shot. How many of those people are immunocompromised? No, it's not a lot. So, but if we purchase these vaccines to consider the primary doses, the first booster shot, the second booster shot, then it's going to be a challenge to wipe out all those 90 million vaccines by the end of the year. No? So there is a sense of urgency here, and there is definitely a waning immunity. I did my antibody test the other day, and my antibodies after 5 months collapsed. No? So I'm leaving for Europe, and I was finally able to take my booster shot. No? But nevertheless, I think what's important is that even our employees, their immunity is waning. So we want to use this since they're here already. And we're appealing that if HSAC can't get this thing approved, then let's find out who can get this passed, since FDA has already approved it.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Joey. And we do hope it gets approved because time is running out, so to speak. And I find it ridiculous that we give it to those who are immunocompromised, those who are comparatively fragile, and yet we don't give it to seniors like myself and young ones like yourself. Okay, thank you very much for your time.
You,
have a good day. Okay, that's Presidential Advisor on Entrepreneurship, Mr. Joey Concepcion. We'll go for a quick break. When we return, we talk travel, publication, and what's involved in the business here on Agenda. Welcome back to the program agenda. I'm your host, Cito Beltran, thanking you for being subscribers of Cignal TV. Lalo na po yung nandun sa gawing Sambuanga. Hanggang dulo maaabot ang Cignal TV. And of course, thank you to those of you who watch us via Facebook and YouTube, and those who try to catch our replays whenever, wherever. We really appreciate the support, and we do hope that you learn from all our offerings here on the program. Thank you for watching One News PH. Now, let's now go to our next guest, who is, truth be told, my neighbor. Okay, and it is only today that I am learning much about him. I have known him for the longest time to have been the publisher or editor-in-chief, actually editor-in-chief of the Mabuhay magazine, that beautiful magazine that we all see, read on Philippine airline flights, and that was from 2001 to 2016. And he was also a special assistant to former PAL chairman and President Sonny Dominguez in 1995. He has worked with the Armed Forces, the Philippine Veterans Investment Development Corporation, DND. But here's the interesting thing. His body of work involves travel. Ayan po. Okay, dun. Okay, Rekindling Travel. This is his new series, Rekindling Travel. And I've written about his previous publications, bucket list, okay? Yung mga travel destination. So let's bring in my neighbor, Simon. Simeon pala siya. Lagi ko siyang tinatawag, Jun! Maghugas na tayo ng kotse. Jun Ventura. Good morning, Mr. Ventura.
Good morning, Cito.
Okay, I'm really surprised with all the stuff you've done, and I never even knew that you've won 21 awards, 16 of which are global, for travel journalism, travel guidebook, Anvil Gold Award for public relations, etc. Now, how did all of this start?
Okay, to start with, in 1987, during the time of Dante Santos, Mabuhay magazine was being published by a Singaporean firm. So your Tito Max Sullivan said, hey, Dante, why do you have to ask a Singaporean publishing firm to do it? We Filipinos can do it. We've got good writers, good photographers, good artists, good editors. So our first issue was May 1988, and our last issue was June 2015. So we published it for 28 years, and to validate that we Filipinos can do it, as emboldened by your Tito Max, in the process we won 19 awards, 4 local and 15 global. We made it such a point that Mabuhay became such an institution. People wants to be featured in it. Happy to be featured in it. All because of the vision of Max Sullivan.
Yeah, but okay, so Tito Max Sullivan was the forerunner of this, but how did you get into publication? Kasi kung tutusin, looking at you right now, I don't know if your friends make a joke of it, but I just realized, you have a strong resemblance to Basil Valdez. I know you as a golfer. You've always been suave and debonair, but how did you get into publication? Because some people would say, ako, napaka-boring na trabaho niya, nandun ka lagi sa mesa, nagsusulat at nagkakat and paste, etc.
It's another story, Cito, but to make a long story short, I used to do things for the armed forces, that I had to deal with Max, and Max brought up the idea of us doing business together, So basically, I'm a businessman. I said, why not, But when I started looking into the contract, it's not an easy business, Not an easy business.
Okay. Meaning?
Meaning, we're talking specifically about in-flight magazine. So your audience is only the passengers, okay?
Mhm.
So you have to consider the profile of the passenger. So advertisers would only advertise based on not only the number of passengers that an airline is carrying, but what is their profile, what they can afford, And at that time, those were very turbulent days during the Cory administration. So I'll give you an example. At that time in 1988, late 80s, the Japanese would line up in Louis Vuitton stores in Hong Kong, Pinoys, maybe they'll shop in Mark and Spencer. So naturally, it's hard for us to get advertisers like Louis Vuitton and Rolex, because they feel our passengers can't afford. So fortunately, PAL understood our situation, and for a certain amount of time, they subsidize us. Otherwise, we cannot sustain it.
Okay, but ultimately, it has become an institution. Kumbaga, kahit sino pa ang pasahero mo, they look for your magazine. Now, how did you go about determining your editorial policy or directions? Because it's a monthly magazine, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah.
And month to month, coming up with topics. I tried that sort of work for a short while, and I said, forget this job. This is the writing one column a day is or 3 times a week is hard enough, but coming up with an entire magazine for a month, how did you do it?
It's not easy, but fortunately, if you look at my background, I work as a civilian with the military, so. That taught me to be very mission oriented or objective oriented. Just simply do it. Going back to your question, how do we do it? Mabuhay Magazine is primarily a marketing tool of PAL. So PAL tells us the destinations that we should feature. International and local. Okay. Now my job is to make sure that there is something there for everyone. What is something there for everyone? It's like a formula. I make sure that I have something there that's high end to attract the business class passengers. At the same time, it's aspirational for the economy class passengers. So it's a balance. You put adventure, you put food, and everything. At the same time, what's very, very critical is you have to continuously evolve with the times. Meaning to say, when we started doing this in the late 80s, people loved to read. And then ito na, late 1990s, early 2000, maiksi na yung attention span. So we have to make sure that the copy is short but meaty. What's very important is to be useful. Meaning to say, don't be too trite. Don't say something that they already know. You come up with things that, oh, I'm glad you know this.
Okay, now
simple things like you don't talk simply about surfing. You come up with a sidebar on surfing stroke. You come up with a sidebar on the language of surfers. Stuff like that.
What was the toughest article you've ever had to publish or put together? Because I mean, we have 7,100 islands minus 1 or 2 taken by the Chinese. But what was the toughest assignment? Because I've been around. I've done a lot of traveling, tourism-related traveling, and it can be a trial, especially when there are not enough facilities.
Well, everything is really tough, Cito. But again, I go back I'm very grateful for the training that my father was a former military, and my work with the military before, to be very mission oriented. Just do it.
Okay.
So everything is really tough. You really just have to find a way.
Yeah, but when I go through Mabuhay magazine copies, I don't see the military there. All I see is fun and sunshine and travel. I mean, were you always a travel bug?
Not really. I was fortunate kasi that even before Mabuhay, I was given a lot of opportunities to travel. When I was working with Admiral Spaldon in Southcom, I was just only 25. he sent me to Norway to observe the fishing industry there, so stuff like that, You're saying that you don't see the military there. The military there is the discipline, Cito, and always coming up with contingencies.
Yeah, okay, but you moved on. The magazine was the magazine, but since then you've come up with 2 books, the bucket list series, and now you have this rekindling travel. Why the passion for travel?
Well, number one, obviously we have the expertise in it. We did Mabuhay for 28 years. We won 19 awards for that. So we have not only the expertise, we have the net worth. Net worth means we know already the good photographers, the good writers. We know the people in the industry. Now, going back...
Bihira, hanap ng i-interviewin. Ikaw lang pala ang kukunin kong booking agent. Solid na kami.
Yeah. No problem. Okay. It's the old boy network, meaning to say, if they know that you're a nice guy, meaning to say, even if you're the publisher or editor-in-chief, be a nice guy, So even when you're not around anymore in those positions, they're still nice to you, and never abuse. Sometimes, of course, general managers would treat me out. They'll say, "Hey, Jun, I'm going to give you the suite." No, I'm all right. Just give me a standard room. And then they treat me out also for food and beverages. And then when I check out, they say, "Hey, what's the matter? You don't eat?" So it's the type. Just be cool, just be a nice guy, and you'll do well in the industry.
Okay, you did the bucket list series and now rekindle travel. When you did Mabuhay, it was for a corporate interest. Now, itong bucket list, what inspired you to put it together and how did you go about it?
Number one, Cito, I think one of your guide questions is how do we do things better? Okay, so the idea of best of the best. It's not unique. You go to a bookstore, you see the best of this and the best. The challenge now is how do you make it better? Okay. Now we presented this to the late Secretary Moni Menes. The best of the Philippines. So he said, "I like that, Jun. Please continue to explore that because that will be the first book that will present the country's award-winning and unique destinations." And now going back to how do you do it? Well, as you can see, and you gave a very super review of that. We're the first one to come up with a destination map, route maps, and trivia. And you even said we even bothered to convert distances to nautical miles. Those little things. So you really have to push the envelope and find out how do you make something better. But when you make something better, it should not be like a task or a job. You should rub your hands and say, let's do it. This is fun. Then globally, it's lessons like that. Look what Steve Jobs did with the iPhone. Nokia went down. So always doing something better.
Yeah, but with the introduction of technology, how has it affected the publishing tradition? Because some people said, delikado na yan, mawawala ang mga libro, everyone is using their phone. Do you feel threatened by this, or are there still a lot of people like me who are tactile and who just wants to feel a book in their hand? Because I really can't read anything prolonged on a laptop or a gadget.
A very good question, Cito. It's like, are we going to be like dinosaurs? Okay. Now, going back specifically to the things that we have done, as you yourself pointed out you wrote a fantastic review on Best of the Best. You said, books like this with such an extensive coverage and logistics required needs the support of the Department of Tourism. That's why every editor's note that I write, I'm saying we're deeply grateful to DOT for supporting us. With regards to mainstream publishing, very difficult. I subscribe to the International New York Times, and they say they're just really going down. And you can clearly see this. You go to, let's say, Fully Book, Vanity Fair now is so slim, ergo with Condé Nast and Travel and Leisure. Now, how are they able to evolve? They're able to evolve by going digital.
Mhm. So is it the same?
No, no, no. Maybe I'm speaking like a senior citizen, and I still like the tactile. That's why
Mhm.
I subscribe to the international edition of New York Times.
Mhm.
Very, very deeply affected. Our book sales only went up after the pandemic,
Okay,
but
now,
there's still people who buy,
okay,
but
now,
not like before.
what about feedback, June? Because as an opinion columnist, I don't even read feedbacks anymore because you don't really know what's troll, what's fake news, what's, just haters. But for many people who are in the publishing business, do you still get feedback from your book buyers like in the good old days where people would say what they like and what they didn't like?
Well, when we were doing Mabuhay magazine, I would always put my personal email in my Ed's note, and they do give me a feedback. They do give me a feedback. Before we do the lineup of an issue, before I used to rotate the list of articles among the staff. Sometimes I go to Starbucks and ask. So feedback is very, very, very important.
Mhm.
When we were conceptualizing Best of the Best, we thought nice topics like cultural stays would be nice. Internally among our staff, all they wanted to do was go to beaches and try a lot of food.
Yeah, because you're surrounded by young people, your family included.
Yeah.
Okay, so what about long term? Because everybody's been talking about the value of education, and I find it ironic that we're no longer talking about these destinations. Parang na kino-consider na luxury na lang yan, pangmayaman na lang yan. But one would imagine that if your books like Best of the Best and Rekindle Travel, etc., if they were included in the education, let's say, of college students, at least there would be an appreciation kasi parang kahit sa geography, lagpak na rin yung mga Pilipino eh.
Well, good point, Cito. In fairness to Paul, what they would do is once an issue is over, they will now distribute it throughout the country, mostly elementary schools. With regards to the travel books that we have done for DOT, I believe not only do they give it to key tourism stakeholders, but also throughout the country through their regions. That is why we make sure that when we were doing Mabuhay, one of the early editorial pages would be footnotes in history. But you just don't present copy. You have to put an illustration. Otherwise, people won't read it. The key now is what you call edutainment. You have to entertain and then educate at the same time. I think you also pointed out when you reviewed Best of the Best, you said comic style, cartoon style. It's you have to put a lot of visual candy.
Well, it's turning out to be a very successful formula because hey, Marvels, Avengers, that all started from comics, from cartoon animation, etc. And now they're the big money makers. Now, in terms of the Philippine setting, what's our immediate future for tourism? You being one of the experts, you've done the homework, you do the research all the time. What's the future like?
Okay, the good news, every time that Condé Nast and Travel and Leisure, the two most prestigious and highly reputable global magazine, would come up with the best list, they usually come up with the top 10 islands in the world. Easily, the Philippines would land 3. Sometimes 4 out of 10 would be in the Philippines. This would be Siargao, Palawan, Cebu, and Boracay. So right there. Now, when you say what's in store for us, I think the current Secretary of Tourism, Bernard Puyat, is on the right track by starting an awareness on sustainable tourism. Because the young traveler now is very conscious of that. What is sustainable? So if a destination or a resort doesn't have any responsible, sustainable practice, they won't go. If they find out that that destination or resort are quite responsible with regards to helping the environment, they would reward.
Yeah, like as far as environmental friendly facilities, utensils, and particularly cleanliness and no littering. Because I know these keyboard warriors, I've met several of them on my trips, and they immediately write about a place if it's, oh, these people are still using plastics, they don't have a trash disposal system, blah. And I said, okay, here we go. We're going to take hits for this one.
No, you don't have to go far. For example, Cito, the Ayala resorts in El Nido, they've been winning the best environmental awards in Dubai. That's like the Oscar awards of the world, So what we just need to do is keep on communicating this because there are already winners right here in the Philippines, I mean, Ayala El Nido resorts would always win this, We also have a female ranger into Bataha. Oh, a lot of award winners. We just have to propagate this, glamorize them, make them inspirations. Make them the pegs. Dami magagaling dito.
Okay, now where can people get the best of the best series and the rekindle travel? This nice covers here. There you go, ladies and gentlemen. It's different destinations in the Philippines. Where can people get this, June? Because, kuminsan, you go to a bookstore, parang favoritism yung placement. Magkakalkal ka pa, maghahanap ka pa. Where do people get your books?
Well, actually, so the first book that we did, Best with the Best of the Philippines, which we did in 2015. So DOT ordered 10,000 copies. We ordered also 3,000 copies for retail. But because of the beauty of the book, sold out. Up to now, 7 years, we're still getting. Or Bucket List 1, the first concept to do the bucket list in the country, also sold out. Bucket List 2, which Secretary Puyat wants to promote sustainable tourism. There's just only a few copies. The book that I just gave you a copy, the third edition, we don't have. We just have personal copies. They really have to ask DOT.
Okay. Sorry, folks. I got them and I'm not giving them away. Thank you very much, June, for your time. And please keep in touch. Let me know what's happening on the horizon or what's developing in the industry because you're one of the top experts in the country. You should be the DOT or at least be a consultant because
I will unfriend you. I will unfriend you, Cito. But ito lang ang gusto ko sanang mensahe, Imagine, we always land in the best list, the top 10, sometimes 4 islands of the country. So Filipinos should not be strangers in their own land, Go visit the country, And my only advice is, take time to fill the place, I mean, they just take photos to post on social media and that's it.
Okay. Well, we will continue to promote the Philippines. Thank you very much. And let us know if you have new things on the table because we support guys like you. Thank you, June.
Okay. Thank you, bro. Bye. Thank you.
That's Mr. Simon Ventura Jr., a.k.a. Jun Ventura, one of the country's top editor, publisher as far as travel books go. Okay, now I leave you with this week's prayer or declaration, okay? In form of a blessing, it's a declaration from the book of Numbers, chapter 23, verses 19 to 20. God is not man that he should lie, or a son of man that he should change his mind. Has he said, and will he not do it? or has he spoken, and will he not fulfill it? Behold, I received a command to bless. He has blessed, and I cannot revoke it. So please consider yourselves blessed. And that is today's agenda. Please keep on watching One News PH. Include us in your prayers, please. God bless all of you.